Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to give you guys 4 tips on how you can help yourself get a job in the fashion industry. Tip number 1 is to figure out what kind of software your dream job requires and learn that software. So if your dream job is to go work in New York at some big fancy clothing label, then you need to figure out what software it is that they use and learn that software, because probably that's the software that you're going to be required to learn for your job anyways. So like for me, if I wanted to go off and be a pattern maker at some, giant company, I would go and I would look at the job description for that position, and if, they don't have one, something similar, they have job postings and stuff like that, figure out what software they have. So for me, my software might be that I need to learn Gerber, or that I need to learn Electra, or whatever other softwares there are that are out there. If you want to be a designer, then probably you're going to need to learn how to use Adobe Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator, and maybe even some other ones I've seen even InDesign and stuff being as a requirement for designer positions. So if you went to like more of an art-based college or something like that where you did a lot of stuff by hand in terms of like sketches and stuff, just be aware that in the industry your hand-drawn sketches are not nearly as valuable as your software skills are. So if you can draw by hand, that's great, but like even at my company that I work at right now, it's not even really that large, and we don't do anything by hand. Everything is by computer. We do all of our flats on Illustrator, and we have to know how to use Excel and all that stuff as well. So the software is extremely important because a lot of people are not computer literate, and that weeds a ton of people out if they do not know how to use the software. And yes, they can train someone, but you have to be that much more like of a better candidate than everybody else that you're competing against. Whereas if you already have the software and you're like, well, okay, then you're already a step ahead of everybody else, if that makes sense. Tip number 2 is to take your relationships that you are forming in college seriously. I was guilty of this. I'm pretty much guilty of not following any of my tips, and I really wish somebody would have like shaken me by the shoulders and be like, do these things, because it would have made my life a lot easier. But I did not. In fact, whenever I first entered into the fashion program at my school, I was working, I think, 2 or 3 jobs. I can't remember. I worked 3 jobs at one point while I was working there. While I was going to school there. And, my teachers did not take me seriously at first because I would show up late. I was commuting 2 hours, working 2 or 3 jobs. Most of the time while I was in school, and so I'd be late, I would miss class because I was exhausted, or I would sleep underneath the pattern tables, which, that's normal, I guess. That's not really that weird, at least not at my school, but anyways, but they didn't take me seriously because I didn't seem like I was going to be a good professional. Like, they just see a bunch of kids, basically, and they don't think necessarily that anybody has any like real responsibilities outside school, and so they're thinking that the way that you're acting while you're in school is how you're going to be acting at your future job. And so for me, that's definitely not true. I was taking my work very seriously because that is the only way that I had a roof over my head, because I didn't have any help while I was in school and I had to do everything myself. And so I was taking my work seriously, but to them, your work is your schoolwork, not whatever stuff you have going on outside. And so it took a while before they started taking me seriously, and that didn't happen until I actually cut back on my jobs and was there all the time. And then I ended up getting best collection, and I ended up getting a recommendation from my teachers to go and work at the company that I'm currently working at. So it ended up working out for me. But had I not ever repaired that relationship, if anyone tried to call my school, if they knew the head, the head of the department, and she was like, no, that wasn't a good student, then I might not have ever gotten this job. Might not get my next job, And so it's very important to keep up these relationships and to just treat people well. Generally you should treat people well anyways, but it's even more important when you're in school because your future career is depending on it. And once again, I'm guilty of this because I have a very strong personality, I'm very opinionated, and generally if someone is saying ignorant or disrespectful things, I'm going to speak up and say something about it. And some people, will be like, oh, she's a bitch, and write me off and never want to, recommend me for a job. And that's fine, I'm fine with that, but maybe don't be fine with that, maybe try and stay professional and just walk away whenever people say stuff like that, because once again, these are people who are, you know, all these students that you're going to school with, all your peers, you know, once they graduate, they're all going across the country to work at these other different companies, and this might be your only lead into getting a job at a particular company, or even worse, even if you don't even put them down as a reference or reach out to them at all, the potential employer might say, oh, they went to the same school and they graduated at the same time. Hey, did you know this person? What did you think about them? And they're like, they're fine, but you know, they were an asshole and they don't get along well with other people. That's not going to help you get a job. And so you really need to think about these things whenever you're interacting with people that you are in school with. And what really, really sucks is that there are a lot of really talented people who don't have jobs in the industry. And it sucks because it's just wasted talent, and you know that they could do so well if they could just get in. But it's very difficult to get in if you don't have a good reputation with your peers and your teachers. And it just really, really sucks. And especially because you look at some of these other companies and stuff, and you know, you're like on LinkedIn or whatever, and you see someone who you went to school with and you're like, they were terrible. They were actually not good at all. Maybe they got better, I don't know, but I'm like, how did they get a job at this place? Meanwhile, this person who's extremely talented wasn't able to get a job at all. So be sure that you are making good impressions while you're in school, and also that you are making an impression, because if you're just being a wallflower and you're not reaching out to people, you're not making friends, whatever, you're going to be forgotten. As soon as you're not around, you're forgotten, because you didn't make any kind of lasting impact on anybody, and when a job comes up, their mind is immediately going to go to the people who made an impact. Obviously, you know, you want to make an impression, not just a good impression. You need to first make the impression. Tip number 3 is to be sure to finish all of your projects while you're in school. That way you can put them in your portfolio once you graduate. So I am guilty of not doing this tip, and my portfolio was very thin because of it. So pretty much the only thing that I had in my portfolio that was actually ready to go whenever I graduated was my collection. And my collection was lingerie. And that's not going to help you get a job if you're going for a company that does not sell lingerie. So, you know, it might be impressive, but they're thinking, where do you fit in here? Like, are you even interested in making this stuff? You know, it doesn't show a full range of what you can actually do. And so after I graduated, I really had to bust out some stuff to show kind of more of a range of what I could actually create. And you know, I was lucky enough to have some pieces that were finished, but I had a whole lot of pieces that were unfinished, whether that's because you run out of time because you didn't get a chance to hem something or whatever, or because, like in my school, sometimes our projects would be a bodice only or a skirt only. And so if you never went back and made it into a dress or whatever, you ran out of fabric, and so you have to figure out a way to make these into complete projects, because you don't want to put unfinished pieces into your portfolio. It just doesn't look as nice. So, and that goes for sketches, that goes for everything. Like, you need to make sure that you are finishing these projects so that way you have a diverse, you know, collection of work that you can show a potential employer. And this is something, once again, that I wish I would have done. Luckily, I was able to flesh out my portfolio enough that I didn't have any problems getting a job. But if, you know, you're only left with your collection to photograph, it's usually not enough to show a range of what you are capable of doing. So I would highly suggest that you actually finished all of your pieces. And it's also just good practice in general, because you really don't want to leave any unfinished pieces in the real world. And your teachers are going to be more impressed if you turn everything into a final garment anyways. And maybe this is a requirement at your school already, but it's not at mine, and so I thought I would include this tip. Tip number 4 is to do an entire spread that is just for the company you are applying for. Now, this is really a tip that's primarily if you are trying to be a designer. It doesn't really go if you're going to be a pattern maker, but if you are applying for a job as a designer, then I highly suggest that you design a spread of a few pieces. It doesn't have to be a lot. That is just for the company that you are applying for. And I know this is difficult, especially if you are in a bigger area where there's a lot of competition and you're applying to a lot of different places, but this is going to actually make you stand out even more compared to the other competition. And I actually did this for my current place of employment. I created this little 6-piece spread. I added swatches, and there is an embroidery design. I don't know if y'all can see that or not, but it's like a peacock embroidered design because I do embroideries. And so I included that in my portfolio to show them, like, because once again, I did lingerie for my final collection. That has been what I've been wanting to do for the longest time, but there is no industry here in Dallas for that, and I really just needed a job. And so this is, you know, my best way to show them that I know what I'm doing and that I'm not just someone who makes lingerie. I can also do women's wear. And I think that that really helped me, because it's kind of funny actually, because I went in talking and, you know, showed my portfolio and all this stuff, and, you know, we talked back and forth and stuff, and then she's like, well, really, you know, she saw my, I keep also in my portfolio, I'm going to do a portfolio video so you guys can see everything that I like put in my first portfolio, and then I'll show you my updated one. But I had grading stuff inside of my portfolio to show that I know how to do grading, and you know, she saw the stuff and saw the stuff that I had patterned, and she, you know, we started talking about a pattern making position that was coming up, because she really needed a pattern maker, and I ended up getting that job instead, which I think is a better job personally. It's a lot more technical, it's harder to be replaced in my opinion, and you know, it's something that I enjoy a lot more. So I ended up actually getting a better job because of it. But even if I hadn't, I still think I would have gotten the design position based off of my spread, and showing that I could, you know, not just create stuff that I wanted to create, I could create stuff that was new and fresh, but still within the, you know, the brand and their aesthetics. Okay guys, that's all of my tips. I hope you guys found this video helpful and that you have an easy time finding a job in the industry. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below and I will definitely get back to you. If you like this video, hit the subscribe button so you can get new videos in your subscription box, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.